Chapter 1. My wife was pregnant with my first love's child and forged medical records claiming she had uterine cancer. She didn't expect it to be true. Initially, I didn't know how to approach her. Now I don't need to. She's dying, and everyone knows it. I urged her to get treatment, but everyone advised me to give up, to divorce her. So I was persuaded. When Wanyan handed me the test results, my hand trembled slightly. Uterine cancer, late stage. Ainin, let's get a divorce. Hearing those words, I looked at her sharply, dropping the report. Her eyes reddened as she picked it up, saying weakly, late stage, incurable. I really don't want to be a burden to you. You're still young. Divorce won't be a loss for you. My death won't have anything to do with you. I disagreed, urging her to reconsider. The child can't be without a mother. And isn't your old classmate a doctor? Let's consult with him. Medicine is so advanced now, maybe it can be cured. However, she caressed her belly, a flicker of warmth in her eyes. When she looked up at me, her expression was still resolute. She was determined to divorce me. While saddened, I felt a slight sense of relief. Fortunately, she knew, and I didn't have to be the bearer of bad news. After all, it's a difficult thing to say, fearing she couldn't handle the blow and would collapse. It seems she's strong. Chapter 2. She's sick. I tried to persuade her for a long time, but she remained adamant. She didn't want to waste money in the hospital and insisted on divorcing me. I had no choice but to call her parents. Wanyan is the apple of her parents' eyes. They only have this one daughter. How could they let her give up without even trying treatment? I invited my in-laws to our home. I believe with modern medical technology, there must be a way. Dad, Mom, you can't just indulge her like this. However, to my surprise, her parents, who usually doted on her, unexpectedly refused. My mother-in-law said, Xiaonan, I understand how you feel. I know it's hard for you to accept. It is for us too, but this is reality. Yes, my mother passed away the same way. Not only did she suffer, but she also dragged the whole family down with her. When she finally went, she looked neither human nor ghost. My father-in-law seemed to remember something and continued, taking her to the hospital, spending hundreds of thousands, with no improvement, unable to cure the illness, only prolonging the suffering, wasting money and exhausting everyone. Besides, our grandchild is still young, and we don't have much money to waste. My mother-in-law walked up to me and held my hand. Wanyan talked to us about this beforehand. She's doing this for your own good. Don't let her efforts go to waste. I stared at them in disbelief. They wouldn't even save their own daughter, just letting her condition worsen? Were these the same parents who treasured their daughter so much? While I was still lost in thought, Wanyan came home from work. Seeing her parents there, she was surprised. Wanyan looked at my dejected face. Nan, my decision is well considered. My parents agree with it. I frowned and asked her, what about our daughter? She pondered for a long time, just about to speak, but her mother cut her off. Xiao Di will stay with you. Mom! Wanyan's eyes widened in surprise, seemingly disagreeing. Her mother ignored her and continued. We can't let her lose her mother, and then her father too. Your father and I are old. Taking care of a child is too tiring. Besides, you've been taking care of her all these years. She's closer to you, and it's better than staying with two old people. They had already discussed everything and made up their minds. There was nothing more I could say, and I certainly hadn't considered giving up custody of my daughter. So I agreed. However, I looked at Wanyan and said sincerely, if you really don't want to go to the hospital, then at least make some good memories with our daughter. We'll officially divorce after we come back. She hesitated for a moment, and finally, looking at our daughter's face, she nodded, but with one condition. Afraid she might have regrets, I asked her again if she was truly giving up on life-saving treatment. Wanyan's attitude remained firm. I looked at her helplessly. I told her to prepare a bucket list. Chapter 3. Wanyan's first wish is for me. I want to take our daughter and complete the honeymoon trip we never took. Back then, she had just started her business and was too busy, so we put it off. Then came the pregnancy, the birth, and one delay after another. Finally, the trivialities of life wore down our romantic ideals. We couldn't even be bothered to celebrate regular holidays, let alone a honeymoon. If it weren't for this sudden tragedy, Su Wanyan and I wouldn't have stopped and embarked on this journey. We chose a fairy tale town in Switzerland, a less strenuous trip. European fairy tale architecture, nestled at the foot of the Alps, with scenic train rides through exotic landscapes. I booked the accommodations and planned the meals. Switzerland's scenery is famous. In the promotional photos on Xiaohongshu, any snapshot looks like a masterpiece. But when we arrived, compared to our daughter's excitement, Su Wanyan seemed indifferent. The real thing isn't as beautiful as the photos. It seems beauty needs imagination. Being here takes away the mystique. Yeah, this scenery isn't even as good as Yunnan. I understood her implication. She didn't regret missing the honeymoon here, because it's overpriced and the food is terrible. Chapter 4. I took her and our daughter on a small train. Along the way, I took pictures of them constantly checking in at fairy tale towns. She loves the Korean drama Crash Landing on You, especially the backgrounds and the photos of the main couple. For this reason, I did a lot of research to ensure she had a relaxing and enjoyable trip. There's also skydiving here, which she's always loved, as well as bungee jumping. I signed her up for a class and even prepared a handheld camera to capture her perfect jump. I also took her to see the snow-capped mountains, and we rode in the snow. At the hotel, she and our daughter were still raving about the trip, saying my arrangements were perfect. I laughed and said, I planned this a long time ago. After all, this place hasn't changed much, don't you think? Su Wanyan's eyes darkened at my words, and she uncomfortably looked away. She was the one who excitedly suggested coming to Switzerland. She never thought I would actually do the research and planning. The night before the end of our trip, I opened Zhou Ziyuan's Weibo. I saw a new post. He had snow in his hair and was holding someone's hand. The caption read, "Growing old together with you like this, grateful for the world you exist in." The background was the path in the fairy tale town. The meaning was clear. Chapter 5. Zhou Ziyuan also came to Switzerland. I looked at Su Wanyan, who had already disappeared, thought for a moment, and decided to have a good chat with him. I had just sent a text message when, not long after, Su Wanyan rushed back furious. Her face was displeased. Why are you looking for Zhou Ziyuan for no reason? I gave her a look. Our daughter had just fallen asleep. I pulled her out of the room to talk on the balcony in the hallway. Su Wanyan first flung my hand away, venting her anger. How many times have I told you? I have nothing to do with Zhou Ziyuan. After you learned about his existence, you became jealous and suspected me every day. Have you ever considered that maybe it's your jealousy and constant paranoia that caused me so much stress and drove me to cancer? Hearing her words, I was shocked beyond measure, my whole body trembling slightly. What are you saying? Su Wanyan snatched my phone and saw the text message, pausing slightly. It wasn't the questioning she had imagined, but a plea. A plea to Zhou Ziyuan to persuade her to seek treatment. Even if there was only a 0.1% chance my daughter and I didn't want to give up, we didn't want to lose her. Su Wanyan's expression froze, her anger instantly transforming into guilt. She wanted to throw herself into my arms, but I took a step back. She looked at me awkwardly, then used another set of words to cover up her embarrassment. I'm sorry, I was too sensitive. Maybe it's because I'm sick, my time is running out, and the mental pressure is too much. That's why I spoke so carelessly. Forgive me, I'm a patient. My illness is just bad luck. Meeting you was my good fortune. She made her lies sound like the truth. If I hadn't seen the reply from Zhou Ziyuan on the phone screen, the one that made Su Wanyan breathe a sigh of relief, I might have been fooled by this touching performance. Zhou Ziyuan replied, "Please respect her decision." He also sent a long paragraph afterward. In short, it meant that I shouldn't interfere with Su Wanyan's life choices based on my own desires and add to her pain and suffering. He didn't mention divorce at all, but every sentence urged me to let go. Now Su Wanyan was looking at me expectantly, leaning gently against my chest. I'm sorry, husband, don't be angry. Tell me, what can I do to make you happy? Just tell me, I'll agree to anything. Don't give me the silent treatment, I'm scared. She's very good at acting coquettish. Before, when I heard her soft, coquettish voice, my heart would soften like spring water. Now, it was the same person, the same voice, but I felt a little disgusted. However, I didn't show it because she was sick, very sick, yet no one was persuading her to seek treatment. She was dying. How could I argue with a dying woman? Chapter 6. After the belated honeymoon, her second bucket list item was to make it up to our daughter, Su Wanyan and I. Well, her career is more successful than mine, and our daughter spends more time with me. Therefore, in our family, the high-powered Su Wanyan is the absent mother. To avoid regrets, I wanted her to try her best to fulfill our daughter's wishes. Our daughter once had a birthday wish to go to an amusement park with both mom and dad. She agreed, but later she broke her promise. Our daughter had been looking forward to it, but just showed an "I knew it" expression. This time we had to make it up to her no matter what. Our daughter was overjoyed. We went to Universal Studios and we bought express passes, so we didn't have to queue for any rides, just use the fast track. That day, we practically went on all the major attractions, even riding the flight of the Hippogriff twice. I once again played the role of photographer, recording every beautiful and happy moment between them. The two of them wore Harry Potter robes, immersed in the joy. We stayed until evening, and I lifted our daughter up so she could watch the fireworks and the parade. Our daughter laughed. "This is so fun, Mom and Dad. Can we come every year? I love Mom and Dad so much." She hugged my neck and smiled brightly at Su Wanyan. Under the flashing fireworks, Su Wanyan's face flickered between light and shadow, her emotions difficult to read. Holding our daughter, I said, "I know you want to have a son. Your parents couldn't have a second child back then because of certain regulations, and now they're putting pressure on you, right? But to me, it really doesn't matter. A daughter is wonderful. The difference is just external judgment. Sometimes women are more misogynistic than men. Perhaps they recognize the invisible unfairness of the patriarchal system early on and long to save themselves through having a son." I smiled. I hope our daughter will be independent, confident, and strong, and I'm willing to give her all my love for that. Wife, let's pretend today is our daughter's birthday. Say a blessing to her. I even asked a young person nearby to record this moment for us. After hearing this, Su Wanyan's eyes reddened. Fireworks were still blooming in the sky, and performers were dancing in the parade on the street. Su Wanyan reached out and hugged our daughter, kissing her forehead. "Baby, you will always be my most beloved daughter. Remember that?" Our daughter nodded happily and kissed her mother. She couldn't understand the deeper meaning of those words. Regardless, Su Wanyan did a great job with these two wishes. Chapter 7. Her last wish was a trip to Xining, to the source of the Yellow River, to see the cradle of Chinese civilization. Su Wanyan was a bit of a hipster, finding modern Tibet too commercialized, so she wanted to go to Qinghai. It had a diverse culture, and she missed the delicious beef and mutton noodles. When we arrived at the airport, Su Wanyan's phone rang. Unexpectedly, it was the deputy director of gynecological oncology calling from the hospital, asking why she hadn't come in for treatment. "You can't delay this any longer. The uterine sarcoma is growing, and the situation will become extremely dangerous. Medication alone can't suppress the spread of cancer cells. You need to return to the hospital for treatment immediately. The specialists need to discuss your treatment plan together. If it's a matter of cost, you have health insurance, and we can discuss that." Su Wanyan looked shocked, as if hearing about her illness for the first time. I was surprised the doctor would actually call and persuade a patient. Such a responsible doctor was truly rare and commendable. The deputy director's voice was quite authoritative. "Are you Lu Zheng's friend? We know each other. Miss Su, come to the hospital tomorrow on an empty stomach for a detailed examination to determine the status of your condition." It was an order. Su Wanyan's furrowed brow smoothed out. Glancing at me, she said sadly, "No need. I've already made up my mind. I'm not going to have treatment." "Why?" "Insurance can cover part of the cost, and there are good national policies now. You're still young." "Thank you. My grandmother died from this disease. I know exactly what I'm facing. Rather than waiting to die in a hospital, I'd rather live with dignity, calmly and completely accept death, so my family will suffer less." The doctor, experienced, and understanding of the patient's psychological struggles, asked repeatedly. Su Wanyan's attitude remained firm. He gave up helplessly, offering a few perfunctory words. I held her hand, and she squeezed out a smile. When we landed in Xining, she experienced altitude sickness, vomiting, and a nosebleed. Actually, I did too, but I just felt dizzy and my vision blurred. In that moment, I shared her pain. Chapter 8. Su Wanyan vomited on the way to the hospital. Even with oxygen, her face was still pale. I stayed by her side and told her we could go back anytime if she felt unwell. I still hoped she would get treatment. Su Wanyan reassured me, saying that a day of rest and oxygen would be enough. In reality, her condition was more serious than she thought. Seeing me bustling around, she looked even more guilt-ridden. After a day, she acclimated to the altitude. We went to Qinghai Lake to see the migratory birds, rented a car and drove around the lake, and visited a Lama temple to pray. Finally, we reached the headwaters of the Yellow River, the cradle of Chinese civilization, powerful and surging. The water wasn't as clear as we imagined, but that murky water was the source of life. This small tourist town was off the beaten track. However, many ethnic minorities lived there, and they held a bonfire party. Under the starry sky, they sang and danced in their traditional costumes. Life was so beautiful. I said, "There are beautiful things in life, Wanyan. Can you please not give up on yourself?" A look of anxiety flashed across Su Wanyan's face. "I'm sorry. Please forgive my selfishness. I don't want to be a burden to you." I said, "If it's a financial issue, we still have some savings. Worst case scenario, we can sell the house, borrow from family and friends, and with the government's assistance programs, we should be able to manage. Money can be earned back, but if a person is gone, they're gone. I really don't want our daughter to lose her mother. For my sake and our daughter's, please reconsider." Su Wanyan remained silent, then finally said, "We've already discussed it. When we get back, we'll get a divorce." I clenched my fists, staring at her face. I saw. She looked at me, puzzled. I said sadly, "You haven't been taking your medicine. You even threw it away in the bathroom. That medicine could save your life. How could you throw it away? Are you that eager to die?" Su Wanyan's expression froze. Lost for words, she didn't know how to respond. Chapter 9. Is it because you're afraid of the side effects? I asked. This question gave Su Wanyan an idea for her answer. Pale-faced, she said, "Yes, the medicine isn't working very well anymore. Taking it makes me feel even worse. You know how much I value my appearance. Taking it will make my hair fall out. Even at the very end, I don't want you to see me at my ugliest. Can you understand that? I want to die beautiful." Her resolute tone made me want to laugh, but I maintained an expression of anger. I took her hand and held her in my arms, burying my head in the crook of her neck. "You're so cruel. How can you do this to us?" Su Wanyan felt the warmth and moisture and hugged me back. "I'm sorry. Please forgive my selfishness. And you've done nothing wrong. You shouldn't have to bear this." "What about our daughter?" I asked, perhaps affected by my emotions and unsure how to end this. Su Wanyan whispered in my ear, "I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I believe you'll be a good father, but I can't be a good mother." She was ready to lay her cards on the table. She gently pushed me away and looked at me earnestly, wiping the corners of my eyes with a tissue. "Let me go. Let's get a divorce." This reminded me of the time before we got married. We were strolling down the street when she suddenly grabbed my hand and said with a smile, "Let's get married." She wasn't reserved at all, and I had once deeply loved her vibrant spirit. Perhaps my quiet nature bored her. Perhaps marrying me was just a way to check off something on her life's to-do list. Between marriage and love, she chose the latter. Finally, I released her hand, looked up, and softly replied, "Okay, we really did get divorced. We signed the papers a month ago. We were going to decide whether to finalize it after returning from Qinghai." I was generous with the division of assets. The most important thing was custody of our daughter. After all, her business had declined due to the pandemic, and her life would be difficult. I said my final goodbye to her. "I'm leaving this city. Firstly, staying here will make me sad. Secondly, because of work, I need to earn more money to support our daughter. I packed my things, picked up our daughter, and said my last goodbye to Wanyan. My daughter kissed her mother's cheek. Mommy, remember to think of me? Bye-bye. Her eyes reddened, and she forced a smile. Yes, be a good girl for Daddy. Mommy will miss you. Perhaps my daughter sensed that this might be the last time she saw her mother. She cried in my arms. Chapter 10. From Wanyan's perspective. Wanyan and Song Nan divorced as planned, smoothly to an unbelievable degree. The original plan was for her to feign illness so she could get a larger share of the assets. Indeed, Song Nan didn't haggle with her over money and even left her the house. After the divorce was finalized, Wanyan wasn't as happy as she'd imagined. Song Nan had barely left before Zhou Zuan rushed to her side and proposed, touching her stomach. It's showing, we can't hide it much longer, Zhou Zuan said urgently, holding her hand. She and Zhou Zuan were first loves. Back then, Zhou Zuan's family was very wealthy. Later, he went abroad, and their relationship fizzled out. They met again at a class reunion. If she hadn't run into him, Wanyan would have been content with her ordinary life with Song Nan. People are like that. After a long period of normalcy, they seek a bit of excitement. Zhou Zuan's appearance stirred ripples in her long-dormant heart. At first, she was able to remain rational, but later, she didn't know how it happened. She just crossed the line. That day, they met again at a dinner party, and she accidentally drank too much. Being in a strange city, both of them drunk, the thread of reason snapped, and it seemed to happen naturally. Zhou Zuan said he still loved her, asked her to divorce, and said he would marry her. The abyss is like that. Once you take the first step, the second is out of your control. Zhou Zuan spent money lavishly and even visited her parents. Her parents, learning of her pregnancy and that she'd snagged the wealthy Zhou family, naturally hoped their daughter would marry up. Comparing Song Nan to Zhou Ziyuan, her parents looked down even more on the ordinary office worker Song Nan. When she married Song Nan, because he came from a small town, everyone said she was marrying down. Under the strong persuasion of Zhou Ziyuan and her parents, Wanyan wavered. Zhou Ziyuan arranged for Lu Zheng to fabricate a false medical record so she could divorce Song Nan at minimal cost. After the divorce, everything went according to plan. If anyone asked why they divorced, the prepared excuse was that Song Nan had abandoned his terminally ill wife. So, her choosing Zhou Zuan wouldn't be a problem. She successfully convinced herself. The plan was perfect. Her belly protruding, she went to the hospital for a prenatal checkup. The doctor said she wasn't pregnant, but had a uterine sarcoma, late stage. All that perfection instantly crumbled. Chapter 11. I moved to a new city with my daughter. To avoid trouble, I deleted all my contacts. Months passed, and I'd established myself in the new city before I heard any news about Wanyan. It started with a whirlwind of public opinion, all directed at me. A post appeared online. Poisonous husband horrifying. The Liu family vehemently condemned me, claiming I divorced my wife after learning she had a terminal illness. They said I knew she was ill, but still dragged her around the world, exacerbating her condition until it became incurable. They accused me, a venomous husband, of deliberately plotting my wife's murder. They were going to sue me. Only then did I learn of Wanyan's death. I thought about how she'd even discarded her medication while traveling. How could her condition not worsen? How could she not die? Public opinion fermented quickly, and soon my story with Wanyan was unearthed. Cyberbullying, like a tsunami, swept over me, exposing every detail of my life. All those wedding vows, promising to stay together through thick and thin, sickness and health, swearing eternal love, were they all just bullshit to deceive a woman? Marriage truly is a woman's grave. If women didn't get married, how could they get uterine cancer? Yeah. Once a woman marries, she becomes a nanny, working outside, doing housework inside, and taking care of the children. A husband heartlessly abandoned his wife after she got a terminal illness, refusing her treatment, just watching her die. That's so cruel. I heard the husband also took the child away. How terrifying. It seems the husband knew his wife had a terminal illness and still took her everywhere. Could he have done it on purpose, delaying her treatment to make her condition worsen faster? Wow. Is this an upgraded version of a wife-killing case? So scary. They say a woman's heart is the most poisonous, but compared to this husband, it's nothing. The real-life version of my horrifying husband? The wife's parents only had one daughter. I can't imagine the heartbreak and despair of burying their own child. Many people demanded prosecution, demanded an investigation into me. Suddenly, Su Wanyan had many good friends, good classmates, good neighbors, and so on. They praised Su Wanyan online in various ways, and they righteously condemned me online. Facing this escalating online trial, I couldn't bear it. I was forced to come forward and contact Su Wanyan's parents. Hearing my voice, my mother-in-law said, "Finally decided to call back? You're so cruel. Your wife died, and you didn't even say a word." I calmly asked, "The truth is not what's being spread online. Why are you clinging to me? Don't you care about your niece?" Back then, I repeatedly urged Su Wanyan to get proper treatment. But what happened? They firmly refused. My mother-in-law seemed about to retort, but I faintly heard Zhou Ziyuan's voice. Then they went silent. I asked, "Tell me, why are you so insistent on dragging me down? Return Wanyan's insurance money to us." As expected, it was about the money. Chapter 12. Su Wanyan was accustomed to buying insurance, having witnessed too many cases of people falling back into poverty due to illness. So, she bought policies for the entire family, and the coverage amounts were substantial. After Su Wanyan's death, the insurance payout was enough to cause infighting and envy among her family. You've seen the news online. If you don't hand over the money, don't expect to live peacefully with your daughter. Then the call ended. Quickly, they found a way to gain sympathy: live streaming. First, they went on a frenzy online, building up Su Wanyan's persona as a filial daughter and virtuous wife. Amidst the clamor of feminist rhetoric online, Su Wanyan became a super innocent victim. My daughter married beneath her. He promised to treat her well for the rest of her life, to pamper her. But what happened? As soon as her husband found out she had a terminal illness, he immediately demanded a divorce and took most of her assets. My daughter, heartbroken and seriously ill, didn't have money for treatment and just quietly passed away. It's all his fault. He killed my daughter. They spoke while shedding tears, eliciting sympathy from many netizens. Gifts flooded the stream, and people even donated money for them to pursue legal action. Having set the stage, the father-in-law began his narrative. My daughter bought insurance before she died. Things were chaotic during her illness, and no one remembered it. After the divorce, she forgot to change the beneficiary, so the money went to the husband who abandoned her. My wife and I were heartbroken. That money could have gone to anyone, but how could it fall into his hands? As soon as he said this, the screen exploded with comments. "Oh my God, a real life lost her. This is terrifying. Happening now? Killing without consequence. And even swallowing her insurance money. What kind of world is this? They must sue. How can he get this money after abandoning her when she was sick?" The enthusiastic netizens began to chime in, essentially labeling me as the culprit. Some even started posting evidence online of me murdering my wife, all based on conjecture, but analyzed with seemingly sound logic. Then, someone offered a suggestion: have the insurance company investigate. Don't let that money fall into the hands of the devil husband. I watched the live stream, frowning slightly. Their online harassment had seriously affected my life and work. Because of this, I had to take a long leave of absence to deal with the matter. Because after Su Wanyan's death, Zhou Ziyuan's intentions for staying with the Liu family were too obvious. He was after the insurance money. Then, I discovered that Zhou Ziyuan's company was indeed experiencing a major financial crisis. Chapter 13. After my information was leaked, I was harassed relentlessly. Netizens began to group up and attack me, using all sorts of vicious language, even threatening to kill me and claiming they were upholding justice. My in-laws' livestream viewership also surged. They were clearly profiting handsomely from their performative grieving and selling goods, essentially capitalizing on my misery. So I decided to fight fire with fire. I created a Bilibili account under my real name and posted a video. The video went viral and quickly climbed the charts. Unlike my in-laws' evasiveness, the video's audio and visuals were crystal clear. I appeared on camera, looking haggard, trying my best to calmly explain the situation. My wife didn't want treatment because the process is too painful. I didn't want her to leave us, so I asked her parents to help persuade her. Following this was a recorded video. I invited my in-laws over and explained my wife's condition, sincerely hoping they could convince her to get treatment. However, to the outrage of netizens, they refused. They said they respected Sue Wanyan's decision. No matter how much I pleaded, they remained unmoved. Finally, Sue Wanyan's voice appeared, softly saying, "Husband, I know this is difficult, but I've made up my mind and my parents agree. Don't feel pressured by any sense of obligation." She repeatedly emphasized that she didn't want to burden me and begged for a divorce. I pleaded with her, heartbroken and unwilling to let go. In the end, I helped her create a bucket list. I took my sick wife and our 4-year-old daughter on a trip, hoping to create some lasting memories for our family. The video showed our family on a train, swaying gently as we admired the foreign scenery. Time seemed to slow down. Our 3 hands overlapped. It was peaceful and beautiful. Finally, at Tower Temple in Xining, we made a sincere wish. I wrote, hoping for a miraculous recovery from my wife's illness. Sue Wanyan was moved to tears and held my hand. "Marrying you was the luckiest thing in my life. I got sick because I used up all my luck, but I don't regret meeting you." The rest of the video showed scenes from our family's bucket list trip. I captured many moments of interaction between my daughter and her parents. Our daughter shouted, "You are the best mom and dad in the world. We will always be together forever and ever." The end of the video showed a shaky scene. Sue Wanyan collapsed in front of the camera and was rushed to the hospital, her face pale. "Wanyan, don't be stubborn. Let's go back and get treatment. We can sell the house. We have money. If it's not enough, I'll find a way." I pleaded with her again. Our daughter is too young to lose her mother. Sue Wanyan forced a smile. "No, prolonged illness wears down family bonds. You're a good person, a good husband, a good father. I don't want to drag you down." She spoke so sincerely. My eyes reddened. The video ended with her own words. "Let me go. Let's get a divorce." It wasn't an outburst of anger, but a plea filled with deep affection. How could anyone refuse? Chapter 14. Oh my God! A twist. This is so romantic, especially her transparency and understanding. I've witnessed what true love is. It's like that line in the poem. "The furthest distance between us is not life and death, but when I stand before you, and we love each other, yet are willing to let go and offer blessings." His wife is a very rational person. She must have realized her fate and didn't want to wear down her loved one. Oh my God, there's more. New documents appeared online. The original divorce agreement, notarized by a notary public, left most of the marital assets to his wife. He took custody of their daughter, Sue D. At the same time, the beneficiary of the enormous insurance policy was revealed. Their daughter, Sue D. Everyone was shocked that the child took her mother's surname. My explanation was that a child's surname doesn't change anything, and I respect the hardship his wife endured during the 10 months of pregnancy. This is such a twist. No wonder his wife proactively gave up treatment. It turns out she found a saint of a husband. She didn't want them to suffer together through her illness and end up in a messy situation. She's probably very level-headed. My aunt also died of cancer. When she passed, she had no dignity left, and her family suffered along with her. This is absolutely a good wife and a good mother. It seems like this whole Yulun Chantal public opinion trap was set up just to get the insurance money. Did you see the asset division? He very generously left almost all of the marital property, hoping his wife would change her mind and seek treatment. Netizens then started digging into Sue Wanyan's parents. They quickly discovered that they were suing the hospital, claiming misdiagnosis and demanding compensation. The hospital immediately issued a denial, and the deputy director even released call records. Su Wanyan firmly stated that she didn't want treatment and knew the consequences. Su Wanyan's parents were being unreasonable and wasting public resources, stirring up trouble. Seeing this, netizens basically figured out the whole story. It all comes down to the insurance money. How greedy! Extorting the hospital and wanting the insurance money. Their daughter is dead, and all they can think about is money, money, money. If their daughter knew how heartbroken she would be, she'd probably jump out of her coffin. Too bad cremation is popular now. Public opinion instantly did a 180. After dealing with all of this, I returned to work. My colleagues looked at me with respect. Chapter 15. Actually, the original beneficiary of my wife's policy was me. Later, it was changed to her mother, and finally, she changed it to our daughter. After the divorce, I sent her a video I made during our travels. After her death, I received a diary of hers. It recorded her entire treatment process in the hospital. March 1st, admitted to the hospital for examination, diagnosed with terminal illness. March 2nd, surgery at this late stage is pointless. Only when I truly realized I didn't have much time left did I understand how absurd my choices were. March 15th, the patient in the bed next to me passed away from cancer. She didn't have enough money for treatment. My daily expenses in the hospital are high. Even with health insurance, I need a caregiver. My whole body aches. I've lost a lot of weight. My temper is getting worse and worse. And my family is starting to resent me. Even Zhou Ziyuan is. April 1st, I wish someone would tell me that my cancer diagnosis is just a prank, but the constant pain reminds me that I'm dying. In 1 month, I've spent a lot of money. My parents are visiting less and less, and my friends are starting to distance themselves from me. As if I'm about to ask them for money every time I open my mouth. At this moment, I thought of you, our daughter, and the happy times we spent together. Thinking of you makes the pain a little more bearable. For the first time, I have a desire to live. I hope I can recover. I want to be a good wife, a good mother. I'm sorry. I really regret it. I regret the things I did that hurt you. April 3rd, pain. April 15th, agony. May 1st, my time is running out. Songnin and sorry. Thank you for the warmth you showed me at the end. Finally, I'm begging you, please take good care of our daughter. The insurance beneficiary will be changed to our daughter's name. I hope this can lessen your financial burden. Please tell her mommy will always love her. Su Wanyan, final words. Chapter 16. I flipped through the notebook, watching her handwriting deteriorate, a clear sign of her decline toward the end. Reading her heartfelt remorse, I felt a profound calmness. As for her apology, whether it was for the infidelity or the fabricated medical records in pursuit of a more advantageous match, it no longer mattered to me. Everything I did so that I would always remember I have a daughter. Changes in a marital relationship are easily detected if you pay attention. She never mentioned her interactions with Zhou Ziyuan. He flagrantly posted a picture of them embracing in a hotel bathroom on Weibo. Even though their faces weren't visible, the hand in the photo revealed her identity. She also created a secondary account to constantly flaunt their love. Their first love may have shattered, but they were the ones who put the pieces back together. I realized Su Wanyan didn't love our daughter that much. Even giving her her mother's surname couldn't change her inherent selfishness, her love for herself above all else, her lack of responsibility. Su Di, that was my mother-in-law's choice of name. Only later did I understand their disdain for our daughter. My mother-in-law wanted a nephew, not a niece. In that moment, I realized that a woman's self-loathing is even more terrifying. Chapter 17. That day, I received the report mailed from the hospital. Her uterine cancer reminded me of the pregnancy test in her bag. Before I could tell her about the diagnosis, she handed me her medical report. It really was uterine cancer. I looked at her, bewildered. She said sadly, "Let's get a divorce." Seeing Zhou Ziyuan's Weibo posts, along with many other clues, I quickly pieced together the whole story. I was the biggest obstacle to their rekindled romance. Her proposing a divorce also allowed me to gain custody of our daughter. After all, she mistakenly thought she was pregnant and wanted a son. I couldn't let my daughter suffer that injustice. Despite my thoughts, my daughter was still too young. She barely understood anything, and she was about to lose her mother. I couldn't bear it and urged her to go to the hospital for treatment. But they conspired to deceive me, just to get more money. They were even willing to give up custody of our child. At that moment, my heart died. For my daughter, I played along, letting Wanyan perform a bucket list with her. At least, I wanted to leave my daughter with beautiful memories of a mother's love. So, I took them abroad to a fairy tale town and recorded videos. When my daughter misses her mother, she will always remember her mother's love. The adult world is filled with filth and insatiable greed. At least a child's childhood shouldn't be tainted. Along the way, I wondered if anyone would stop this fabricated dream. Wanyan knew the truth. How would things unfold? Unfortunately, she was too confident. Even when the hospital called, she chose not to believe it. After all, she had used an old classmate to forge medical records. In front of me, she didn't dare to believe reality, only continuing her false performance. Sometimes I wish someone would stop this bucket list, but my advice was a burden to her. For her rekindled love, she wanted to completely sever our marriage. I don't want to hate her, because that would only consume me. I naturally wouldn't hold a grudge against someone who is dying. My focus is on my young daughter. As long as she can play the role of a good mother in her final days, that's enough for me. More than assets, I need custody of my daughter to take her away from this swamp. Because a tornado is about to hit Wanyan's life. I don't want my daughter to be hurt in the slightest. The purpose of this bucket list was to hope that in her final moments, she would remember the daughter she had wronged. That's why I mailed her the final travel videos, the identity bit by bit, every little detail of her time with our daughter. Chapter 18. The video's greatest effect was to shake her state of mind. Although her company failed, the compensation from health and life insurance was substantial. In the video, I repeatedly showed her interactions with her daughter. For her, tormented by illness, the child represented new life, healing, and comfort. My presence was downplayed, while her role as a mother was emphasized. The daughter's childish calls of mama should be able to sway her decision. Sure enough, she changed the name on the insurance policy. Thus, the matter came to a perfect conclusion. Although she betrayed our marriage for the sake of our daughter, and considering the true suffering heaven had already given her, the emotional betrayal became insignificant. The online abuse once directed at me was returned twofold to her parents. They were called parasites feeding off their daughter's blood. Wanyan's assets had long been transferred by Zhou Ziyuan to save his nearly bankrupt company. Her parents only then realized Zhou Ziyuan was merely a playboy. He thought Wanyan's startup was successful, so he wanted to rekindle their old relationship to maintain a decent lifestyle. Little did he know Wanyan had the same idea. So where was the love? It was nothing but adults' calculations of pros and cons with ulterior motives. Using love as a pretext for personal gain, they might as well sleep together, hooking up with each other. Unexpectedly, it was a case of one con artist meeting another. Both discovered that the other was rotten beneath a gilded exterior. Wanyan didn't have a last-minute change of heart. She realized everyone around her was unreliable. A person near death is very fragile emotionally. Just a little sweetness, and she would automatically magnify it, especially recent tenderness. Later, I saw news about her parents on a legal affairs program. It turned out Zhou Ziyuan had swindled all their retirement savings. Her father took a knife to extort money, and Zhou Ziyuan died after a day in the hospital. Her father was sentenced to 10 years for intentional homicide. Her mother, angry and despondent, jumped into the river. I took our daughter to arrange her mother's funeral, burying her near Wanyan. Our daughter cried bitterly in my arms. Thinking the incident had become too big, I wanted to change her name to protect her privacy. The daughter said, "I want to change it to Yi." "Why?" The daughter smiled and said, "It has fewer strokes, easier to write, and sounds nice." This reason was so simple, I couldn't help but laugh. "Yi," I said, holding her hand as we strolled in the sunset, smiling. "Not bad. It does sound nice. I don't yearn for my daughter to be extremely successful. I only hope she grows up healthy and can live her life in the way she likes." As for the inheritance left by Wanyan, it's the foundation supporting her physical and mental freedom.